Hello children, welcome to this new edition of VK Sir's Physics Clinic. We are going to discuss today an interesting topic called Bohr's model. In the previous video we discussed Rutherford's model and we also discussed his failures. It was a wonderful model. It gave the world community the concept of nucleus and orbits which were not understood before, right? But it failed to explain the stability of orbits. Now, the new model which is proposed by Niels Bohr actually was Amdahl-Revelsine model. It removed the defects of Rutherford's model. We very well understand that the orbits are stable and so is atom. We all are made up of atoms. If atom was not stable, we wouldn't have been what? Existed. We will not be in fact able to explain why the atom is stable. So it's very clear that electrons are not colliding with the nucleus. So how it is possible? It is explained by Niels Bohr. Niels Bohr actually used the existing theories of classical and quantum mechanics to explain the fallacies in Rutherford's model. Let's understand what is Bohr's model. Bohr's model. Niels Bohr actually said that motion of electrons around the nucleus is explained in terms of the Newtonian mechanics, which is classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. Let's understand what are the main features of Niels Bohr's model. He said, like Rutherford's model only, that atom is spherical in shape, like this, and then it has a centrally located point called nucleus, and the nucleus contains all the positive charge and mass. Electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths that we call orbits. Suppose this is one orbit of an electron. This could be another orbit of an electron. This could be another orbit of an electron. Now these orbits, in fact, needed to be made stable. We know the orbits are stable. See, suppose one orbit is here, another orbit is here, another. What happens to the space between these two? Can we have another orbit out here? Not necessarily. In fact, there are infinite possible orbits, but every orbit cannot be taken. Niels Bohr laid down certain conditions for that. We'll be discussing. He said that atom is spherical in shape, has a centrally located point called nucleus, which contains all the positive charge and mass, and electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular orbits. So let's imagine an electron here. This electron is revolving in a circular orbit, or this electron is revolving in a circular orbit, or this electron is revolving in a circular orbit, or this electron is revolving in a circular orbit. You know, for moving along a circular path, you require actually what? A combination of forces on to be applied on an electron, right? One such important force will be the centripetal force. Now the question is, you have done in circular motion, uniform circular motion, that for making an object move along a circular path we require a centripetal force. The question is, from where is the centripetal force coming? The answer is, electrons carry negative charge and the nucleus carries what? Positive charge. Now charge on the nucleus, not necessary to have one positive, it can have multiple positive charges and there will be a large number of protons, right? So he said that electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths and centripetal force required for the motion of electron is provided by the electrostatic force of attraction between nucleus and electron, and this is which force? It is also called Coulombian force or electric force. The nucleus is here, the electron is here, the electron is going around in a circular path, the distance is r, then there has to be what? A force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron. So atom is spherical in shape, has a centrally located point called nucleus, and electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths called orbits. Now the necessary force required for the circular motion or the centripetal force is provided by the electrostatic attraction between the nucleus and the electron. Now, can electron move along any path? No. Not at all. He let very special condition. He said that only those orbits will be stable in which angular momentum of electron is quantized. Now what is angular momentum? Mass of electron suppose is m, radius of circular path is r, and the velocity is v. Then its angular momentum is angular momentum of electron is denoted by L is mvr. And he said that angular momentum is quantized and is integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. So only those paths in which mvr will be equal to nh upon 2 pi will be the permissible paths in which electrons can evolve around the nucleus. And the beautiful thing is that when electrons will be, suppose these are permissible paths, this is the first path, second path, third path, fourth path will go on, that when electron will revolve around the permissible path, it will not lose any energy, and as it will not lose any energy, then the radius of its path will not go on shortening and therefore will not collide with the nucleus. So he solved the problem of stability of orbits. Clear? Now, he said that each orbit has a fixed amount of energy. This is like your house in which you have first floor, you have second floor, third floor and fourth floor. For going to the first floor you require minimum energy, second floor more energy, third floor more energy, fourth floor more energy. So he clearly stated that it is not necessary that if an electron is here in the first orbit, it will remain here only. No, it can go to the next orbit. But if it wants to go to the next orbit, you have to supply it with energy, means electron has to absorb energy. Suppose here energy is E1 and here energy of electron is E2. So how much energy you have to supply? Delta E will be equal to first excitation we call E2 minus E1. If electron wants to go from here to the third orbit, then delta will be E3 minus E1. That means electron can jump from a lower orbit to a higher orbit, right? Provided it is supplied with certain fixed amount of energy, and that energy will be equal to the difference between the two energy states, right? It is called quantum jump. It can go from an inner orbit to the outer orbit. It can promote itself. However, if it goes on promoting, a time will come when it will leave the atom altogether and run away from the atom, and that you have already done photoelectric effect, we call it what? Work function, right? So electron can move from inner orbit to the outer orbit, first orbit to the second orbit, second to the third, and as it goes on, moving away from the orbit, then its energy goes on increasing. We will be seeing this. This is energy, like this is the nucleus, first orbit, second orbit, third orbit, fourth orbit, fifth orbit. Remember, energy associated with the first orbit is minimum. This is written as n is equal to 1, we also call k orbit. Then this is second orbit, energy E2, n is equal to 2, denoted by L. Third orbit 3, so n will be equal to 3, this is m. This is fourth orbit, and it will go on and on. So this is how the energy will increase. Energy is given in increasing order as you move away from the nucleus. Okay, so we'll be writing down the major points of Bohr's model once again. The atom is spherical in shape. It has a centrally located point called nucleus, which contains all the positive charge and mass. And electrons evolve around the nucleus in circular paths called orbits. Clear? First point. Second point, the necessary centripetal force is provided by the electric force between the nucleus and the electron, right? This provides necessary centripetal force, which we have already stated out here. Third point, of all orbits possible, electrons can take only those permissible paths in which their angular momentum is integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. And when electrons revolve around the nucleus in these orbits, they do not lose any energy. So these are stationary paths. Okay, there is a fixed amount of energy associated with each orbit. And the next point, electrons can jump from a lower orbit to the higher orbit, provided they absorb necessary amount of energy. Now, very important. Just as the electron absorbing energy and coming to the outer orbit, they can also lose energy. For example, suppose the electron is in the fourth orbit here and comes to the first orbit. So in this case, electron is what? Absorbing energy. In this case, what will happen? Energy will be released. Like let's see here. When the electron is going from first orbit to the fourth orbit here or any upper orbit, then energy will be absorbed, enthalpy will be positive. However, if the electron is coming from outer orbit to the inner orbit, energy will be released. So children, what happens to this energy? When electron is here on the fourth floor, comes down to the second floor. Fourth orbit comes down to second orbit. Similar phenomenon. So when it comes from higher orbit, outer orbit to the inner orbit, it loses energy. Very important. It loses energy, and this energy will be lost in the form of photon or light. And this is responsible for formation of spectral lights. Okay. So we will be writing key points of Bohr's model. Bohr's model. We will be writing the key points. First is atom is spherical in shape, here containing all the positive charge and mass. Atom is spherical in shape. It has centrally located point called nucleus containing all the positive charge and mass. First point. Okay. Now second point, electrons revolve between nucleus and electron. Now, electrons revolve around the nucleus in circular paths called orbits. Necessary centripetal force is provided by the electric force between the nucleus and the electron. Now, this is a very important thing because for every circular motion you need to have a centripetal force. Clear? Now, so children, like I told you that around nucleus infinite number of orbits are possible. But so children, electrons can have infinite number of orbits around the nucleus. But among all these possible orbits, only certain orbits are permissible, and there is a condition. The condition says that electrons can take only those permissible paths on 2 pi. So, electrons can take only those permissible paths around the nucleus in which their angular momentum is integral multiple h upon 2 pi, h being what? Planck's constant. So, mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. Now, this is a very important condition laid down. Even in fact, at the time Niels Bohr proposed this point of view, he was not able to explain why, but he found that this relation was satisfying stable orbits, so he proposed this condition. This can be easily deduced by using de Broglie's theory of matter waves. We will be discussing that in fact. So, electrons can take only those permissible paths around the nucleus in which the angular momentum of electron is quantized. If electron is suppose here and angular momentum is not coming, nh upon 2 pi, then it is not stable, right. So, in these stable orbits, in fact, when electrons revolve in these orbits, stable orbits, they do not lose any energy. They do not lose any energy. So, he solved the problem of stability of orbits, that when electrons will be revolving around the nucleus in these permissible paths, they will not be losing any energy. Clear? Now, this was now children, This is a very significant point actually, because he was able to prove that orbits are stable. Now he said, fourth point, electrons can jump from a lower orbit or energy level. Energy level is another name for orbit, because the amount of energy associated with each orbit is fixed. Electrons can jump from a low energy level to a higher energy level. If they absorb sufficient amount of energy. They can go from a low energy level to, if electron is in the first orbit, wants to go to the third orbit, how much energy it has to absorb? Energy of third orbit minus energy of the first orbit. Clear? Now, when electron jumps from a higher orbit to a lower orbit, extra amount of energy is emitted in the form of radiations, and explains the existence of spectral lines. This is again very important concept we will be discussing today. Whenever electron will jump from any outer orbit to the inner orbit, suppose it comes from fourth orbit to the second orbit, then this difference in energy will be released in the form of photons or light. So, when you go from lower orbit to the higher orbit, energy has to be absorbed, and when we fall from higher orbit to the lower orbit, energy will be released, and this energy will be seen in the form of spectral lines. Clear? So, I hope you understood the key points of Bohr's model. Now, we will be discussing many derivations which form part of this model, like radius of nth orbit. Remember, this model was originally proposed for hydrogen atom or atoms and ions which are like hydrogen atom, meaning there must be one electron in the outermost orbit. Remember, in this original model proposed by Niels Bohr, it remained a defect. The model he proposed was to only for those systems or those atoms which had one electron in the last orbit. Like if you talk about magnesium, 12 is 282, so it is Bohr's theory is not true for magnesium. However, if I say Mg plus 2, 8 and 1, so Bohr's model will apply for that. So Bohr's model is true only for those atoms or ions which have got one electron in the last orbit, which appear to be like hydrogen atom in configuration, and hydrogen one electron in the last orbit. Once you understand it, now I will be seeing, children, derivations of, we will be seeing now, children, important derivations of Bohr's model. The first will be the radius of nth orbit. We will be denoting it by Rn. We will be deriving expression for the radius of nth orbit, then velocity of the nth orbit, then total energy of electron. All these terms will be seen. Now, we will do a general derivation in which I will be deriving for an atom which is like hydrogen having atomic number Z, okay, and then I will modify it for hydrogen by putting Z is equal to 1, okay. So I will say let atomic number is equal to Z, atomic number is equal to Z. So if atomic number is Z means how many electrons will be there in the nucleus, how many protons will be there in the nucleus, Z protons, and charge of one proton is how much, plus E. So therefore nuclear charge, total nuclear charge will be equal to plus Ze. Clear? So imagine an atom like this which is having charge plus Ze, an electron is here, radius of the nth orbit is r, I can also write Rn, n subscript, radius for nth orbit, and the velocity is v or vn, anything you can write. We will be writing r and v, and then in the end we will modify, we will be writing r is equal to r and v is equal to vn. Clear? Mass of electron is m. Now necessary centripetal force is provided by the what? Electrostatic attraction between the nucleus and electron, okay. So now centripetal force, children, you know that is mv square by r, and that will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 into q2 divided by r square. You can cancel out r from both sides. So mv square is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon 0 z into square by r. This is the first equation. Now, if I use the concept of quantization of angular momentum, then what do I get, children? Using quantization of angular momentum, what do we get? mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. So we get here v is equal to nh upon 2 pi m into r. I'll put this value of v in equation 1. I'll put the value of v in equation 1. So putting the value of you put the value of v in equation 1, children, then what do we get? M into is equal to 1 upon 4 pi z into e square by r. So it will be m into n square h square upon 4 pi square m square r square is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 z into e square by r. Now cancel out what is cancelling? M is cancelling, 4 is cancelling, pi is cancelling, and 1 r is also cancelling. These terms are cancelling out. Okay. So if we copy down what is left now, we get n square h square upon pi m r equals to z e square upon epsilon naught. Clear? So if we solve it for r, then how much you get? R is equal to then r will be equal to, children, r will be equal to n square h square epsilon naught divided by pi m into z square, z e square. Hence, the radius of nth orbit, I can write Rn is equal to n square h square epsilon naught pi m z into e square. So we got very interesting relation out here. This is equation 3. Radius of nth orbit Rn becomes n square h square epsilon naught by pi m z into e square. Radius of nth orbit, meaning for first orbit I will put n is equal to 1, second orbit I will put n is equal to 2, third I will put n is equal to 3. From here I will be deducing some interesting relations. First one is, put n is equal to 1, then radius of first orbit will be, children, R1 is equal to, we have h square epsilon naught pi mz into e square. This is equation 4. Clear? And now if I put z is equal to 1, if I put z is equal to 1, it will become hydrogen atom. No, for hydrogen atom z is equal to 1. So for hydrogen atom, children, I will put z is equal to 1. Then R1 will become h square epsilon naught pi into m. See, h is Planck's constant, epsilon naught is permittivity of free space, pi units 22/7, and m is mass of electron. So every term out here is a universal constant. If you solve, then this value comes to be 0.529 angstrom, or nearly we can write 0.53 angstrom. Clear? So we conclude here, therefore, the radius of first orbit of hydrogen atom R1 becomes, put in the value 6.68 into minus 34 whole square, 8.86 10 power minus 12 divided by 3.14 into 9.31 10 to the power minus 31. If we solve this whole thing, it becomes 0.529 angstrom, or nearly 0.53 angstrom. So you have to remember, radius of the first orbit of hydrogen atom is 0.53 angstrom. Very important. Okay. So here radius of hydrogen atom, first orbit of hydrogen atom will be 0.529 angstrom. So this is 5. Now if I use equations 4 and 3, we use equation 4 and 3, from 4 and 3, children, if you use, then Rn is n square into h square epsilon naught divided by pi mz into e square. And what is this? This is radius of the first orbit. So very important conclusion if we draw from here, Rn is equal to n square into R1. This equation 6. All these equations will be important for the numericals. Radius of nth orbit is n square times the radius of the first orbit. Suppose somebody will ask you, what is radius of the second orbit? So put n is equal to 2. So R2 will be 2 square R1, meaning here I will get R2 is equal to 4 times R1. If I put here n is equal to 3, then 3 square is how much? 9. Radius of the third orbit will be 9 times the radius of the first orbit. So like this we can use. If you know the first orbit, you can calculate. Now we can very easily establish a relation between the radius of nth orbit of hydrogen. This is radius of nth orbit of first orbit of hydrogen. If I use equation 5 and equation 3 and equation 4, then I can calculate Rn is equal to n square into 0.529 divided by z square. Now this is a very important formula for you. If you want to find out radius of nth orbit of hydrogen like atom, you can use this formula also. This one is Rn equals to 0.529 into n square divided by z square. This is another very important formula that we can in fact use. Like suppose they ask you, what will be the radius of fourth orbit of sodium atom? Then for sodium atom z is equal to how much? 11. I want to find out radius of fourth orbit for sodium atom. I'll just put here z is equal to 11, n is equal to 4. So I'll be getting radius of fourth orbit will be R4 is 0.529 into 4 square 16 divided by 11 square is 121, and this answer will be an angstrom. So you can easily modify this result for finding out radius of nth orbit of any atom, okay, which is like hydrogen, or ion which is like hydrogen. You can just use this formula, modified formula. Rn is 0.529. 0.529 is the radius of the first orbit of hydrogen atom into n square by z square. Okay. So in radius there are about 7 equations you should remember, right? The most crucial being equation 3, which gives you the radius of nth orbit of hydrogen like atom or ion. Okay. Let's see this. Okay, children. Now, since you have calculated radius of the nth orbit, we will be calculating what is velocity of electron in the nth orbit. Let's see here. Velocity of electron in nth orbit. What is velocity of electron in the nth orbit? Here you've already got V is equal to nh upon 2 pi m into r. This is velocity. Here I'll be writing velocity of electron in nth orbit. I want you to understand one thing. Whenever I'm saying nth orbit, then you can ask which atom. The atom is a hydrogen like atom or ion. Okay. Here I'll use this equation. Vn is equal to nh upon 2 pi m into Rn. I'll put the value of Rn. I'll put this value, okay. Put in the value of Rn. Value of Rn. What do you get, children? Vn is equal to nh divided by 2 pi m into Rn is n square h square epsilon naught divided by pi m z into e square. So pi m are gone, nh and nh are also gone. So what you are left with? Vn is equal to z e square divided by 2 nh epsilon naught. Clear? This is equation 8. Now if I put n is equal to 1, put n is equal to 1, then V1 is equal to, put here n is equal to 1, then z is square divided by 2h epsilon naught. This is equation 9. Vn is Z square by 2n h into epsilon naught. V1 equals to Z E square divided by 2h epsilon naught. If I compare 8 and 9 from 8 and 9, if I use this children, then Vn can be written as 1 by n into Z square by 2h epsilon naught. And you know very well, this is what velocity of electron in the first orbit. So we can calculate here Vn is equal to V1 by n. This is equation 10. So this is a very interesting fact. If this is the nucleus and there are many orbits, so first orbit, second orbit and third orbit, then if somebody will ask you in which orbit electron is revolving at the highest speed, so it is in the first orbit, which is closest to the nucleus because the force is maximum. And as you go away from the nucleus, then the velocity will go on decreasing. Like here, if I put n is equal to 2, then Vt will be how much? V1 by 2. Similarly, if I put n is equal to 3, then V3 will be V1 by 3. The velocity will go on decreasing as you move away from the nucleus. Okay? So you can also say that as you move away from the nucleus, the kinetic energy of electron will go on decreasing and the potential energy will go on increasing. Okay? Now, how do we compare with the hydrogen? Velocity. In the first orbit of hydrogen atom, for calculating velocity in the first orbit of hydrogen atom, in fact, I will be putting here Z equals to 1. I will put in Z is equal to 1. So if I put that V1 will be equal to E square divided by 2h into epsilon naught. If you put in, if you multiply and divide by C, then C into I can write E square divided by 2h, this is 2h epsilon naught into C. Now this quantity which you are seeing inside here in the bracket, everything is universal constant, E charge of electron, Planck's constant, permittivity of free space, speed of light, all of these are constants, and this constant has a particular name. 2h epsilon naught into C is called fine structure constant. What do you call it? Fine structure constant, and its value, if you solve everything, will become 1 upon 137. Clear? 1 upon 137. So V1 becomes C upon 137. Now this is another interesting result you got, that velocity of electron in the first orbit, velocity of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen atom is how much? C upon 137. And therefore, if I use equations 9, 8, 10, combine all together, then I will get a very interesting relation here. Velocity of electron in the nth orbit of hydrogen atom, hydrogen like atom, okay, will be Vn is equal to Z into C upon 137n. This is an interesting formula and a very important one actually. This is actually velocity of electron in the which orbit? First orbit of hydrogen atom. If you divide by n, it will be the velocity of nth orbit of hydrogen atom and multiply with what? Z. This equation comes. Okay. So children, we have been able to derive what is velocity of electron in the nth orbit of hydrogen atom, and we learnt there is a new constant here, E square divided by 2 epsilon naught into c is called fine structure constant and its value is 1 by 137. Clear? So this is about velocity of electron in the nth orbit. Now once we have done this, then we are proceeding with the next topic. Okay? Now children, now we will be calculating what is the total energy of electron. See, as the electron is revolving on the nucleus, then at any given instant it has got kinetic energy also and potential energy also. So we will be calculating what will be the total energy. When I am saying total energy, I mean sum of kinetic energy and potential energy both, right? So this is the nucleus, charge on the nucleus is plus Jd, an electron is here. Suppose electron is in the nth orbit and the radius is r. Clear? So we have, now this is a very important topic, total energy of electron. Total energy of electron. So children, I said total energy of electron will be equal to sum of its kinetic energy and potential energy, right? So we know, if you remember equation 1 which I did in calculating radius, that mv square is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square by r. We already know, yes. Now potential energy, therefore kinetic energy of electron Ke will be equal to half mv square. I will just divide this by 2, so it will become 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square by 2r. So we got kinetic energy also. Now I will be calculating potential energy. Potential energy of electron U is equal to, you know the formula, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R. So we will substitute the values. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, Q1 is Jd, Q2 is minus E divided by R. So we can say that potential energy is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught minus, negative it becomes Jd square by R. So we got potential energy and also we got kinetic energy. Therefore total energy is what, children? Therefore total energy of electron is E equals to kinetic energy plus potential energy. If I substitute the values, then E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square by 2r minus 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square by r. So how much is energy? E minus 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square by 2r. Now this is a very interesting result. Why the total energy is negative? Obviously potential energy is more than kinetic energy. So the total energy is negative. It shows that electron is being constantly attracted by the nuclear force. Right? Now this is equation for the total energy of electron. I will have to replace the value of n. So putting the value of Rn, putting the value of Rn, En will be equal to minus 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Jd square divided by n square h square epsilon naught divided by pi m z into E square. Right? We cancel out the common terms. Pi and pi are gone. And then En becomes minus 2 is also there, 2 Rn. In fact, this is written as K. So many times it is also written as E is equal to minus K by K into Z square by 2R. This also you can write it, where K is what? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, but we prefer to write like this because all the values are displayed out here. K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, so if we solve it, then how much do we get, children? Here this goes in numerator, so we get m z square e to the power 4 upon 4 to the 8 n square h square epsilon naught square. So this is our equation 5, which gives the energy associated with the electron in the which orbit? Nth orbit. If I put n is equal to 1, then E1 becomes n is equal to input minus m z square e to the power 4 divided by 8 h square epsilon naught square. This is equation 6. This is radius of the first orbit of hydrogen-like atom. If I compare 5 and 6, so from 5 and 6, we can conclude En is equal to minus E1 by n square. This is again a very interesting result. The radius of nth orbit is given by En equals to minus E1 by n square. Okay, let's say this. Okay, children, now since we discussed radius of nth orbit of hydrogen-like atom, radius of first orbit, and we found here radius of nth orbit is equal to energy of nth orbit is equal to negative energy of first orbit divided by n square. We shall be calculating what will be the radius of, what will be the energy of first orbit of, children, we will be calculating, we will be deriving some beautiful results here. We will be calculating what will be the energy of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen atom. So here we have energy of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen atom. So if I want to calculate energy of electron in the first orbit of hydrogen atom, then I will be putting hydrogen atom Z is equal to how much? 1, and I will be putting N is equal to 1. Okay. So from equation 5, E1 will be equal to minus m Z is 1 e to the power 4 divided by 8 n is 1 h square epsilon naught. So minus m, we have 9.1 10 power minus 31 into 1.6 10 power minus 19 whole square, 8 6.63 10 power minus 34 and epsilon naught 8.86 10 power minus 12. Put all these values and solve it. If you put all these values and solve, that becomes minus 13.6 into 1.6 10 to minus 19 joule, and this is what, 1 electron volt, so minus 13.6 electron volt. So this is a very interesting result which we have got. So this equation 8. This is to the power 4. If we solve, this is what we get, and 1.6 minus 19 is what? 1 electron volt. So very important, energy of first orbit of hydrogen atom is how much? Minus 13.6 electron volt. Now if I use this equation 8, 7, 6 and 5, if I use all these equations, then here I will get very interesting result. Energy of nth orbit of hydrogen like atom will be En is equal to minus Z square by N square into 13.6, or En will be equal to minus 13.6 into Z square by N square. And children, please bear this in mind that this energy will come in electron volt. Okay. So this is a very interesting result. Energy of nth orbit of hydrogen like atom is in fact what we have done. We have taken out Z square and N square, and the rest is what? Rest is E1 for hydrogen atom, which is 13.6 electron volt. Clear? So energy goes on decreasing in fact as you move away from the nucleus. Alright. So children, these two equations clearly imply to us that energy of nth orbit of hydrogen atom, this is orbit atom, will be En is equal to minus 13.6 divided by N square, equation 10, and this will be what? Electron volt. Once you understood this, then we will try to understand what is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. Energy level diagram. Okay. Okay, children, we will be seeing now energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. Energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. What is the energy level diagram for hydrogen atom? Actually, this is a picturization as to how the energy is distributed in various orbits of hydrogen atom. This comes in exam and you should keep in mind also. Here we know, we discussed just now that energy of nth orbit of hydrogen atom is N is minus 13.6 divided by N square, and that is electron volt. Clear? Let us see what will happen if you put N is equal to 1, then E1 is minus 13.6 electron volt. If you put N is equal to 2, then it will be minus 13.6 divided by 4 electron volts. Now we have put N is equal to 3, then E3 will be minus 13.6 divided by 3 square, and 3 square is how much, children? 9. Similarly, put N equals to 4, then E4 will be minus 13.6 by 4 square, and 4 square is how much? 16. So 0.85 electron volt. Clear? So see, this will go on, and if I put N is equal to infinity, then E infinity will be any number divided by infinity is what? 0. So what we find that as you go on moving away from the nucleus, the energy goes on increasing. As you move toward the nucleus, energy is what? Decreasing. As you move away from the nucleus, energy is increasing. If you pictorially show energy here on the y-axis, if n is equal to 1, this is least E1, that is minus 13.6 electron volt. Now E2 E2 is nearly, in fact, is minus 3.4 electron volt. E3 is how much? Minus 1.5 electron volt. E4 is minus 0.85 electron volt, and this will go on, and at infinity is how much? 0. So this is called what? Energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. As you go on moving away from the nucleus, the energy is what? Increasing. You can see it like this also. As I said earlier, this is nucleus, these are orbits. So as you move away, then energy increases. So children, this is energy level diagram for hydrogen atom. As you moving away from the nucleus, the energy is gradually increasing, right? So we have to keep in mind that energy associated with the electron which is in the first orbit is minimum. As it moves to the next excitation level, first excitation level in hydrogen atom is from 1 to 2. Second one is 1 to 3. Third one is 1 to 4. It will go on, and when you go from even to infinity, that is the stage when the electron is actually what? Ejected, and that's called work function. Clear? Now we will be coming to another crucial part of this, which is spectral lines, Bohr theory of spectral lines. Okay. Okay, now I hope you are enjoying Bohr's model. There are a lot of derivations and very interesting ones too. Now we are going to discuss theory of spectral lines, Bohr's theory of spectral lines. We will understand what exactly is Bohr's theory of spectral lines. You see, suppose this is a nucleus, and there are many orbits like this. There are many orbits, and then suppose electron is located in an outer orbit N2, and it comes to inner orbit E1. It comes like this. Now Bohr's theory says, and as you know already, that when electron is in orbit N2, it has more energy than what energy it will have when it is in orbit N1. As you come toward the nucleus, then energy decreases, and nature does not allow any hoarding of energy. So if electron comes from an outer orbit to the inner orbit, it will be losing its energy, and this energy is emitted in the form of photons, like this. And this energy, which is emitted in the form of light, actually is responsible for formation of spectral lines. If you use a powerful spectrometer and analyze the light emitted, you will be seeing that there will be certain lines present in the spectrum. These are called spectral lines. So let's write about this. When depends upon the values of N1 and N2. When electron jumps from an outer orbit to inner orbit, excess amount of energy is emitted in the form of light. Wavelength of photon emitted, photon means light, depends upon the values of N1 and N2. Now electron is jumping from orbit N2 to N1. This is how the transition taking place. Let electron jumps from orbit N2 to N1. Clear? If I use energy equation, then En1 will be minus m z square e to the power 4 divided by 8 n1 square h square epsilon naught square. Display energy of electron in which orbit? n1, the inner orbit. And n2, energy of orbit n2 will be minus m z square e to the power 4 8 n2 square h square epsilon naught square. Then how much energy is emitted? Here we have energy emitted, delta E will be equal to En2 minus En1, because when electron is here it has more energy than when the electron is here. Clear? Now if we substitute the values, then the delta E will be En2 minus En1, this minus this, so this will come plus and this will come minus. So let's write down minus m z square e to the power 4 by 8 n2 square plus m z square e to the power 4 divided by 8 n1 square h square epsilon naught square. If we simplify, then delta E becomes, we have m z square e to the power 4 divided by 8 h square epsilon naught square into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. This much energy is emitted when the electron is jumping from outer orbit n2 to inner orbit n1. Now how will this energy appear to us? This energy will appear in the form of a photon, and we know that the energy of photon is h into nu. So energy of photon delta E is equal to h into nu, and we know it is equal to hc by lambda. See, energy will be emitted as the electron is going from outer orbit to the inner orbit in the form of photon. Energy of photon will be h into nu, which you know already, and nu is equal to c by lambda. So I can equate equations 1 and 2. Equating 1 and 2. If I equate equation 1 and 2, then hc by lambda will be equal to m z square e to the power 4 8 h square epsilon naught square 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. Clear? And then from here we can calculate what will be the value of lambda. Yes, so we can write 1 by lambda is equal to, divide this side, so h will multiply here, will become h cube, so it will be m z square e to the power 4 divided by 8 h cube epsilon naught square into c 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So children, this is the value of 1 by lambda. Let's try to work a little bit on this expression. It is in fact a very important constant, is called Rydberg's constant. So I can write here 1 by lambda equals to z square into m e to the power 4 upon 8 h cube epsilon naught square c 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. Children, this term which you are seeing here, this term, in fact every term here is a universal constant. M is mass of electron, E charge of electron, H is Planck's constant, epsilon naught is permittivity of free space, and C is what? Speed of light. Every term here is a constant. So we put all these values. In fact, this is, we have, this is 1.097 into 10 to the power 7 per meter and is called Rydberg's constant. Rydberg's constant and is denoted by R. Rydberg's constant is denoted by R. Yes, that means this term can be just replaced by R. So therefore, 1 by lambda is equal to R into Z square 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. Now this will be an important result for you, and this will be what equation number 1, 2, 3, third equation. Clear? Now this 1 by lambda is also denoted as wave number, nu bar, but 1 by lambda is denoted as nu bar. Nu bar is called wave number. So nu bar can be written as R into Z square 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. This is equation 4. So children, here this is for hydrogen like atom because Z is coming. Similarly, for hydrogen atom we have Z is equal to 1. So 1 by lambda becomes R 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. This is equation 6. So if I compare these two equations, then 1 by lambda is equal to Z square into 1 by lambda for hydrogen atom. This is another very important result which will be seen by you. Like suppose they talk about sodium atom, so Z is equal to 11 for sodium atom. So 1 by lambda for the same transition for sodium will be 1 by lambda for sodium is equal to 11 square into 1 by lambda for hydrogen. Yes, meaning 1 by lambda for sodium will be 121 by lambda for hydrogen atom. So for numericals, this formula will be very interesting. So we calculated actually what will happen when electron will jump from any outer orbit to the inner orbit, and we ensured that in this case energy will be emitted, and this energy will appear in the form of photon, and the wavelength of photon, as you can see, depends, R is a constant, depends upon the values of R1 and N1 and N2. Okay. So I hope you understood this. Now I will be seeing types of spectral lines after this. Okay. Types of spectral lines. Okay, now we will be seeing types of spectral lines. We know that when electron jumps from an outer orbit to the inner orbit, then energy is what? Released, and wavelength of light emitted depends upon the values of N1 and N2. So how many types of spectral lines we have? We will be seeing it. Types of spectral lines in hydrogen atom. But then why only in hydrogen atom? For any atom this is true. Let's understand this. This is hydrogen atom, the nucleus, or any atom nucleus. Now this is first orbit, this is second orbit, third orbit, fourth orbit, fifth orbit, sixth orbit, and these are various orbits. N is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There can be infinite number of orbits, also denoted as K, L, M, N, O, P. Now spectral lines will be obtained only when electron is jumped from outer orbit to an inner orbit. Just to be kept in mind. In hydrogen atom, the simplest transition is in the ground state, when the electron will jump from any outer orbit to the first orbit. When electron will jump from any outer orbit to the first orbit, then we get the most simple spectral line is called Lyman series. The spectral lines which we get when electron will jump from any outer orbit to the first orbit is called Lyman series. In fact, there are 6 types of spectral lines. First one is Lyman series, is also called L series, Balmer series, Paschen series, then bracket series, and then P-Fund series, okay. We have Humphrey series also, but we will not be discussing, only 5 types we will be discussing. Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen series, bracket series, and P-Fund series. Now see, when electron is jumping from outer orbit to the N1 orbit, then 1 by lambda is how much here? R, 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. Clear? This is when electron is jumping from outer orbit N2 to inner orbit N1. Okay? Now what is Lyman series? Lyman series. See, these spectral lines are obtained when electrons will jump from any outer orbit to the first orbit. Keep in mind, any outer orbit to the inner orbit will be getting which series? Lyman series. So in fact, what you are getting here is, I'll write it here, Lyman series. Lyman series. Difficult to write. Lyman series. Clear? So, we will be defining. So, these spectral lines are obtained, Lyman series, when electrons jump from outer orbit to which orbit? First orbit. In hydrogen atom, when electron will come to the ground state, will be always Lyman series. Clear? Now, so for Lyman series, children, we have N1 is equal to 1, N2 is equal to 2, 3, so on and so forth. Anything more than 1, but N1 has to be 1. So 1 by lambda will be R into 1 by 1 square minus 1 by N2 square. So 1 by lambda will be R into 1 minus N2 square. And remember, this Lyman series lies in the which region? Ultraviolet region. It cannot be seen by the naked eye. Okay. So Lyman series lies in which region? UV region. Lyman series here is lying in ultraviolet region. It cannot be seen with the naked eye. Now the next spectral line that we have is Balmer series. Number 2 is Balmer series. So like before, we can define it that Balmer series is formed when electron will jump from any outer orbit to the which orbit now? Second orbit, like this. Okay. Any outer orbit to the second orbit. So N1 will be how much? 2, and N2 can be anything more than 2. Okay. So here I will be directly writing without defining. For Balmer series, N1 is equal to 2, N2 is equal to 3, 4, 5, anything. Okay. So 1 by lambda is equal to R into 1 by 2 square minus 1 by N2 square. So 1 by lambda is equal to R into 1 by 4 minus 1 by N2 square. And Balmer series lies in visible region. Which region? Visible region. They can be seen with the naked eye. This lies in visible region, VR. Lyman series. Now we have number 3, Paschen series. Now this is Lyman, this is Balmer. We'll be writing here Balmer series. Okay. Now Paschen will be obtained when the electron will jump from any outer orbit to the third orbit. One here. First line, second line, third line. Paschen series. So for Paschen series, children, N1 will be how much? 3, and N2 will be anything more than 3, 5, 6, anything. Clear? So the wavelength for Paschen series, if we get a numerical, will be R into 1 by 3 square minus 1 by N2 square. R1 by lambda is equal to R into 1 by 9 minus 1 by N2 square. And this lies in infrared region, IR. Infrared region, you can see the wavelength is continuously increasing. First one is ultraviolet region, Lyman. Then it is visible region. Here we can see Lyman series is UV. This is visible region. This is infrared region. Now this is far infrared. Far infrared. This is also, no, this is infrared and this is far infrared. Meaning you can only see one, that is Balmer series, when the electron will be coming to the second orbit. You will not be able to see anything else. Now for Paschen series we saw infrared. Then a bracket series. Bracket series. For bracket series, N1 will be 4, N2 will be 5, 6, dot dot. So 1 by lambda will be R into 1 by 4 square minus 1 by N2 square. Or 1 by lambda will be how much, children? R into 1 by 16 minus 1 by N2 square. Clear? So bracket series you will not be able to see again, is lying in the infrared region, but will be able to produce the heating effect. And the last one we have is P-Fund series. P-Fund series. So for P-Fund series, so bracket is here, bracket series. Last one is P-Fund series here. For P-Fund series, N1 will be 5, N2 will be 6, 7, so on and so forth. Clear? Now, if I put it, then 1 by lambda will be equal to R into 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. N1 is 5, so I will be directly writing 5 square. So 1 by lambda will be R into 1 by 25 minus N2 square. So children, depending on whatever spectral lines they give you, you should be able to calculate a wavelength. Now you have to be able to identify the alpha line, beta line, gamma line, delta line and limiting line. First line is called alpha line, second one is beta line, third one is gamma, fourth one is delta. And if N2 is at infinity, it is called limiting line. Okay. Similarly here, first line, second line, third line, fourth line, first line, second line, third line, it will go on. First line is from the orbit above, second is second orbit above, third orbit above, so you can do it. They can also say K alpha. K means going to the first orbit, K alpha, K beta, K gamma, K delta, like this. Okay. So you should be able to do numericals as they will be given. Just substitute the value of R and then N1 and N2. Okay. So that's all. Go through this Bohr's model is an important topic for you in detail. Okay. Thank you.